You are listening to Housekeepers Chat by the United States Department of Agriculture from 1927. Disclaimer: this is read from a historic archive document. Do not assume content reflects current scientific knowledge, policies, or practices.
This broadcast was aired on Wednesday, the 12th of January of 1927.
Today's chat is for those who long to try their hands at interior decorating, whether it be painting the woodwork in the kitchen or refinishing the walnut chest, which has been stored in the attic these many years. The information in this program has been approved by the United States Department of Agriculture.
Grandma has come back. You remember Grandma. He's the man who wrote to me some time ago, telling me how he keeps house for a large family, on a small salary. I read his letter, too, just as he wrote it. Now I'm going to read his second letter. I wish I knew more about him. All I can say is that he uses nice stationery, writes with a stub pen which sputters once in a while, and never signs his address. Do you suppose he is afraid some of the housewives would make fun of him if they knew his address? We wouldn't, Grandma. We're just as anxious to learn new and better ways of housekeeping as you are to tell us about them. Here's the letter. It starts out with a big splatter of ink. Someone must have given Grandma a new fountain pen for Christmas.
Dear Aunt Sammy, I haven't been speaking to ordinary people since you read my letter to you over the radio. It was the biggest thrill I've ever had. I wish it were on a phonograph record, so I could play it over and over. I never realized before just how high I rated as a housekeeper. I'm so elated over the whole thing that I decided to tell you, and your radio friends, in confidence of course, some of the inside information about housekeeping. I didn't say anything about the house when I wrote you before, Aunt Sammy, but this time, if you don't mind, I'd like to take you through it. I can just imagine you stepping into the doorway, looking about, clapping your hands, and shouting lovely. Neighbors who drop in occasionally praise it, and even the young kids who come to visit my youngsters remark how pretty everything is. And it all came about from spending just a little dab of money, and quite a few evenings, at the other end of a paintbrush. Our old dining room set, made of cheap wood, was anything but pretty, until I lacquered it solid black, with an attractive little touch of red, in a figure I copied from a stencil. Our sunroom has some old, very ordinary-looking wicker furniture, which I painted an attractive light shade of green, and trimmed in a bright orange. My oldest daughter, she's only 12, made a pretty orange cushion for the wicker rocking chair. How our sunroom is the gayest in the house. I did some painting in the kitchen too. Went over woodwork, cupboard, and all with 2 coats of flat finish grey paint, and 1 coat of grey washable enamel paint. You'd be surprised how good looking it is, and how easily kept clean. Then I went upstairs with my paintbrush, using all the ideas I could borrow from looking at bedroom suites in shop windows. I selected shades of greys, greens, and blues, which were not too strong to use on large surfaces, and then added a touch of the colour that set them off best. Although some of my bedroom furniture was pretty much old-fashioned, I just wish you could see how beautiful it turned out. Actually, I wouldn't trade it for some of the new painted furniture in the furniture stores. I had an old bedstead with rickrack trimming, or whatever you call it. I removed the trimming, cut the bedstead down, and refinished it for my daughter's room. I made her a writing table, 2 out of an old kitchen table, refinished. I don't know just what she did to the table, but it surely looks nice. It has a plain tan cover, with a border of cretonne, or something. Right above the table is a picture. I don't know the name of the picture, but it is the one with a barefoot girl holding a sickle in her hand. While I'm telling you all this, Aunt Sammy, in 3 or 4 pages, I spent my spare time all last winter doing it. I acquired so much skill that this winter I'm doing my living room. I have an old-fashioned bookcase I'm painting a dull shade of green, and stenciling with black. It certainly has responded to the treatment. A little magazine stand, that I turned a Chinese red overnight, Gives the room a touch of gaiety that I like. I don't care one whit, Aunt Sammy, how often the painted furniture style comes and goes. It has come to stay at my house. Of course, I would never paint a piece of furniture made of beautiful wood, but I don't have much of that kind. I'm not going to bother to describe the transformation of the old library table and other chairs, but I do want to tell you about the hanging book rack in one of the corners. You have seen them in the furniture stores. They sell for around $10. I made mine and painted it in an hour at a cost of $1.10. Although you didn't approve of me serving whole cracked wheat every morning of the year for breakfast, I know you will put your okay on my woodwork. A year ago it was the ugliest, soft yellow pine that you can imagine. 2 coats of white, flat paint, and 1 coat of ivory enamel brought the interior of our house up to date. It must be wiped off occasionally, but the slick surface makes this easy. I might add, Aunt Sammy, that painting is entirely out of my line, and what I've done can be duplicated by anyone interested enough to study color charts and painted furniture in the shops. I used a new kind of paint that dries almost as fast as you put it on. I don't even bother to sandpaper the surfaces or do any other work, except remove the dust. The paint goes over varnished surfaces just as well as any other. Whenever I can spare a few dollars from the grocery bill, I buy some little old second-hand pieces of furniture that has good shape and will respond to painting. As a result, my house is well furnished and in keeping with good taste. I must apologize for my floors, Aunt Sammy. Downstairs, they are oak, but upstairs, hard pine. They are old, very dark, scarred, and full of wide cracks. Perhaps you, or some of your many women listeners who have had experience, can tell me the most practical and inexpensive way to handle them. My real responsibility, Aunt Sammy, is keeping these young boys and girls of mine satisfied with home. Something tells me that an attractive and comfortable place, with the radio and good books, is going to make the path a fairly easy one. At least, I think they will have more respect for themselves, living in a home they need not be ashamed of. It may interest you to know that so far, I have spent less than $100 on material, and I wouldn't take $1,000 for the improvements I've made. Well, it's been a lot of fun putting this down in black and white, and if it will furnish an inspiration for others, I will be very happy about it. Another thing I like about painting, Aunt Sammy, is that you can sure see what you've done. And it's the greatest indoor sport I know of. I don't expect you to read this letter. I know it's too long, and besides, maybe it isn't worth much. With best wishes, Grandma. P.S. I always listen in on Wednesdays.
That's the end of Grandma's communication, and I'd like to know what he added that postscript for, if he didn't expect me to read the letter. You do have some very good ideas, Grandma. I like to paint, too. Painting the woodwork and sticking onion sets into the ground are 2 things I want to do as sure as spring comes around. At present, there is quite a vogue for painted furniture, especially bedroom furniture and breakfast sets. Some painted furniture is really much prettier than the cheaper grades of oak or stained wood. I agree with you that furniture made of beautiful wood, old pieces of mahogany, walnut, and so forth should not be painted. It should be refinished by an expert who can bring out the beauty of the grain. I have an old-fashioned chest of drawers made of walnut, which I had refinished by removing the varnish, sandpapering the wood, and rubbing down with wax. Your daughter's bed, cut down from a larger one, must be quite handsome. By the way, the trimming on these old beds is not rickrack. That's something else again. You are referring to the fancy carving, often called gingerbread work. I'm glad you took it off the bed. Elaborate carving is hard to dust. If I were to give any advice about painting, it would be this: use moderation. Don't paint all the furniture in the house just because you like to paint. Don't use the brightest colors just because you're fond of color. Color is like music. It makes a person feel gay or melancholy, peaceful or irritable. The size of a room and the lighting must be considered before you begin to paint woodwork and walls and floors. Speaking of floors, Grandma, perhaps I can tell you what to do for your old wood floors. First of all, Make the floor as tight, level, and smooth as possible, plane it or sandpaper it if necessary. Draw out any tacks or drive them below the surface with a nail set. Then scrub the wood clean with hot soap suds and rinse with clear water. Bleach out any stains. A bleaching solution may be made by dissolving 1 teaspoon of oxalic acid in 1 cup of hot water. This liquid, which is poisonous and must be carefully handled, is spread on the wood and allowed to stand overnight. Every bit of cleansing agent and acid must be removed, or they will injure the finish later. When the floor is perfectly dry, it may be stained, varnished, oiled, or painted as though it were new. After the first coat of finish has been applied and allowed to dry, fill all the cracks and holes with crack filler, colored to match the floor. Better consult a good wood finisher about the kind of paint or stain to use. At least 2 or 3 coats of finish will be needed. Treating old floors is hard work, Grandma. If they are covered with several coats of varnish, the work is even more tedious. I could give you directions for making a good varnish remover at home if I had your address. I would send you a bulletin too on floors and floor coverings if I knew where to send it. This bulletin would be a great help when you do the house over this spring. I can't find very much to criticize in your letter. I know you have a big responsibility, keeping your children satisfied with their home when there are so many outside attractions. I suspect your boys and girls help with the housework and with the painting. That's one way to keep them interested in their home. I'm going to make a suggestion. We have heard twice from one man who has good ideas about housekeeping. If there is any other man in the United States who thinks he can tell us something about managing our homes or beautifying them, now's his chance to come in. We must have practical information, remember. And please sign your real name and your real address. You notice that I never broadcast names, but I do keep an alphabetical file of all letters sent in. If I get a letter with no name, how can I file it? I'm not quite sure what I'll give you tomorrow, but I think it will be more recipes and a menu. So please come prepared.
This broadcast was researched and produced by BreakAway Empire LLC.